So hello everyone, I'm Ellie and I'm a research fellow within the ATM team of University of Westminster, and basically today I'm going to represent you with the city archetypes concept of the book. And just a second. So if I want to start, it's the aims and objectives of this project. Basically, we identified 200 European airports, and these 200 European airports, we identified which of these airports belong to which NUTS3 regions. By NUTS3 regions, basically, I mean the NUTS regions, which is the shortened format of the nomenclature of territorial units for statistics, basically NUTS. Which is a geocode, a standard for referencing the subdivision of countries for a statistical purpose, and it's developed and regulated by European Union. And it has three levels: level 1, the biggest level; level 2, the medium level; and level 3, the small regions of each countries, or NUTS3 regions. So in each region, we combine the air, and we consider the air and rail transport mobility of each region to define our city archetypes. So instead of just focusing on the airport or rail stations, we basically combine these different archetypes, means air archetypes and rail archetypes, to define the city archetypes to capture better movements between two regions, origin destinations. And by focusing on the city archetypes, we aim to develop the stochastic landside model of our Mercury model, which is the simulation of door-to-door travel. And so basically, I don't know what happened to my oh, yeah. So in city archetype classifications, we basically classified or defined 5 city archetypes. The top one is archetype 5, and the bottom one is archetype 1, and the bottom one is archetype 5. So the top one, archetype 1, basically consider the main hub airports with good interregional or direct high-speed rail train connected to the airports, and come down, which is basically our gold standard archetypes. And coming down to archetype 2 is there is no high-speed rail connected to the airport, but there's a high-speed rail connected to the city, and it's also in terms of airport archetype is a main hub as well. And archetype 3 is a secondary airport hub, and again we don't have HSR connected to the city as well, but there is a good interregional train to the airports. And the fourth one is the large or medium airports, and we have again no HSR connected to the city or to the airports, but we have good interregional train to the airports. And the bottom one is archetype 5, which is national regional airports, and we have a near good interregionals or maybe poor transport mobility, rail transport mobility to the airports. So basically, in defining city archetypes, we have a bottom-up approach, which is basically scenario-driven. So we basically we consider under different scenarios how we can change the city archetypes and how different scenarios can affect the movement of the city archetypes. So as I showed you, there's 5 levels of city archetypes: archetype 5 to archetype 5, the top one to the very top, and the top quality ones, basically the gold standard one, which is the basically a hub airport is sitting on top of a good capacity high-speed rail, and which is the gold standard archetypes. And archetype 5 maybe regional airports with not very good rail connectivity. And basically, but in order to move the city archetypes under different scenarios, we need to consider, for example, in the time frame of 2040, if there is any plan or expansion plan in terms of air or rail transports. So if you want to, for example, I want to give an example in terms of how we move the city archetypes between different levels. For example, I can start with the promotion roles. And for example, if there is an airport in, for example, Manchester Airport, which in classification under scenario 1, which is a baseline scenario, will be classified as archetype 3. There is no high-speed rail connected to the airport, so it's archetype 3. But in future, there is a plan of having the high-speed rail connecting to the city of Manchester. So we can see we will have the high-speed rail connecting to the city of Manchester, and therefore under scenario 2 or under scenario 3, the growth of air and rail transport, and also scenario 2, the ban on short-haul flights, it can promote it to the archetypes 2. So as you can see, on the different scenario, the archetype and the archetypes of particular airports can be moved to higher level of archetypes, or for example, promoted to, for example, from archetype 3 to archetype 2, it can be promoted. And in terms of demotions, it's the same. And you can see, for example, any European airports in archetypes 3 or 4, under scenario 1 or the baseline scenario, if they're considered in archetype, they are classified as archetype 3. And then, for example, under scenario 2, the ban of the short-haul flights, they might actually those airports might lose a significant air traffic, and the traffic will be diverted to the rail services. Therefore, it can be demoted to the archetype 4. So as you can see, again, change of the archetypes on the different scenario. As the scenarios change, so the archetypes can change. This is not the rule for all the archetypes, but for example, between archetype 3 to 4, or archetype 2 to 1, or archetype 3 to 2, it can happen. So it's basically we want to define somehow not a very like a classical definitions of the city archetypes, but we want to define it in a meaningful way, which under different scenarios there is a meaningful movement between the city archetypes.